Hello there, I'm Major on the Payne No Game channel, and today we're going to take a look at the Rebel Troopers unit. In case you're unfamiliar with the format, what we're going to do is we're going to take a look at the profile first, and then just quickly talk about how does this play out in game in total. Then we're going to take a look at the upgrade options and sort of evaluate them. And then lastly, we're going to take a look at the whole picture of the unit then. How do you play these in lists? What different purposes can they fulfill? And how many do you run, for example? And synergies and so on. Also, in case you haven't noticed already, I'm a German and English is my second language, so if there are any issues with language, pronunciation, or any of that stuff, just point them out in the comments. Alright, then let's begin. Rebel Troopers cost 40 points for a 4-model core unit with a trooper tag, a white defense die, 1 wound, bravery 1, and defense convert, no hit or crit convert, speed 2 movement, so the standard sort of trooper movement or average movement, the A280 blaster rifle with a black die at range 1 to 3 and a black die in melee as well, and the special nimble. After defending, if you spend 1 or more dodge tokens, gain 1 dodge token. Alright, so what do we have here? First of all, it's the cheapest unit in the game if you exclude strike teams without heavy weapons, since these weapons are mandatory for them. So there's already the option of just running one of these as a sort of filling out your core slot without any upgrades, to be an objective runner, to give you 1 extra activation, to fill out your list. If you just ignore all the upgrades we're going to talk about soon. And this is just a very, very effective package for the price. Nimble is a special rule that I have a bunch of issues with, mostly consistency, because for you to gain any effect out of a special rule, the following things need to happen. You need to gain a dodge token either through one of your actions, which is often not the best course of action, or you gain one from other sources like one of the 2 command cards, which could hand them out to this unit, or through the actions of Leia or the rebel officer. So there are some possibilities for this. Then at least 2 enemy units need to shoot at you, and each of them needs to have a number of hits, which is at least 1 higher than the cover level you have, for you to use this dodge token. And all of this needs to happen in this order. If one of the enemy units shoots before, then okay, you may have used your dodge token, but Nimble didn't give you anything. So I feel like this is oh, and by the way, the opponent can also just play around it by shooting a different unit. So I feel like this is a very inconsistent special rule, because it needs a rather specific scenario, and your opponent needs to act in a specific way, and your opponent can, in many cases, just shoot another unit. That's not all that great, but the rest is very, very good and very, very cost effective. Alright, then let's now go over to the upgrades. First of all, in the heavy weapon slot, we have the 2 options. We have the Z6 Trooper with 6 white dice at range 1 to 3, and you're adding a mini, of course, at 22 points. So 12 points on top of the extra model, which can, of course, theoretically use the other weapon as well. So you're practically paying 12 points on top of the cost of a model in this unit for you to have the Z6. And the Z6 is an amazing, amazing gun, because the 6 white dice, while just having two sort of effects each, 1 hit and 1 crit, because you don't lack the convert, they give you both an incredibly high ceiling on attacks, because in theory you can roll 4 hits or crits, 5 hits or crits, in some cases 6 hits or crits, but that's all pretty unlikely, and you have a big inconsistency there in general. But they give you a very high chance of gaining crits, and so guaranteed saves the opponent needs to make, because you have 11 dice on a full unit with a personnel upgrade as well, or 10 dice on a full unit without that. So that's very good. You have a very high chance to gain crits, and the unit will be very effective no matter, even if you start losing models. And if you place your unit well, you can of course control your casualties so that the Z6 is the second to last model down. So then even a unit with just the leader and the Z6 still has 7 dice which can roll a crit. And it's just really, really good, and it's taken a lot because of that, and is sort of the default option, in my opinion, on it. Alright, then we have the MPL-57 Iron Trooper. At range 1 to 3 as well, you gain 2 red dice, you have to exhaust the weapon, and you have a special rules impact 1 and iron 1 for 32 points. 22 points for the gun, basically. Yeah, this isn't that good. Because even if we ignore the amazing other option, it's just pretty problematic, because you have 2 alright dice in any situation, but the weapon is basically dependent on the opponent playing vehicles, and basically playing heavier vehicles, because getting iron on an AT-RT isn't exactly a great use of the points and actions. An AT-RT you would just like to kill with higher impact guns, or more crit convert, or crit dice which gain a crit. This is, I feel like in wave 1 or in general they often overestimated how much points you would pay to hedge your bets against vehicles, and this is a good example of this, because iron you would really need a pair of these, but then you might not play against any vehicles, or your opponent might just shoot one of them, or they may just shoot once. The opponent saves for one impacted crit, and then you don't get anything. So that weapon is just pretty bad on a lot of fronts, and isn't really taken all that often, in my opinion, and also isn't worth taking a lot of the time. Now we go on to the personnel slot. So in the personnel slot we have the Rebel Trooper first of all, which comes in the box, either in the core box or in the box with these troopers, with just one of these trooper units, their own box, and it costs 10 points for 1 additional Rebel Trooper mini. Yeah, you gain 1/4 points, so it's just the possibility to add another trooper, add another life point, add another black die in shooting or in melee, and another wound before the heavy weapon, because you're mostly playing units like this with heavy weapons, and I would probably assume whenever I'm talking about anything in this unit that the unit probably has a Z6, because that's just mostly the case, unless you're trying to do an objective runner unit without any upgrades, or really trying to shore up your objectives with a unit with just 1 personnel upgrade, and this you're probably going to have a Z6 in there. This is alright. I feel like one of the issues is that in this game, in lists, you're often trying to gain a lot of activations, and I personally like to play like 11 activation lists or stuff, similar to, or maybe 10, and the Rebel Trooper doesn't help you with that, because if you are, for example, taking 4 Rebel Trooper units with the Z6, and now you could either give each of them a Rebel Trooper, which would be good, which would give you another wound, another die, definitely would give you some upside, and would be an alright way to spend 40 points. And you have another unit which can take another objective, can use the actions to move towards the objective, shoot for suppression, or gain, or contest, or fulfill mission objectives. And that's the issue I have with this trooper a bit. I feel like it doesn't exactly give you enough upside that you'd say, I don't want to spend these points on another unit or on any upgrade which gives me something better. So in my opinion it's alright, it's a decent way to fill out some points, and can be pretty good if you might, for example, run grenades on a unit. In that case you would definitely like to have another model, but I feel like it's already a little bit too weak in my opinion for it to be the best way to spend your points on. And as we're now going to see, since with the specialist expansion we got some alternatives to this. Next we've got Rebel Officer. Rebel only, add 1 Rebel Officer mini, your courage is increased by 1 and you can inspire 1, which allows you to remove 1 suppression token from another friendly unit at range 1 to 2 after your rally step. And this model becomes the unit leader for 19 points. So basically, if you compare it to Rebel Trooper, 9 points for +1 courage and inspire 1. So basically you're shoring up your own infantry unit's weakness to suppression, which is one of the bigger weaknesses of these core units in general. They always only have bravery 1 and are thereby very, very easily suppressed, or if they're alone, maybe even forced to flee and be completely out of the match for some time. And that's pretty good. I feel like you could say there's some diminishing returns here, you know? If you have a number of these, you will trigger Inspire less often because any suppression tokens might already be away, or you might even have a unit with Courage 2, which has 1 suppression on it, and then this Inspire isn't all that helpful either because you might have just rolled it off or might have removed it at the end of the round. I feel like this is a good option to take it once or twice in the list and improve your game against suppression and improve the way you can deal with suppression, but there's clearly some diminishing returns here, and 9 points for no attack dice or no extra attack dice, no extra wounds, so no direct combat efficiency is also something which you can't, in my opinion, you can't spend all too many points on something which doesn't give you a direct combat advantage in one of these two categories. Then you've got the Rebel Comms Technician, 9 points. Add 1 Rebel Comms Technician mini, you gain a Comms upgrade icon and you must a Comms upgrade card. Just like the Officer, you can still use the standard weaponry. This is basically a cost of a Comms upgrade, -1 is added onto the cost of Rebel Trooper. Let's just quickly see what the Comms upgrades are, especially the most relevant ones, because that's the only way to evaluate this card. Most importantly, we've got the Comms Relay. 5 points. When you would be issued an order, you may choose a friendly unit at range 1 to 2. Issue an order to the chosen unit instead. This is a nice piece of utility, and you're practically playing 4 points if you would compare it to the cost of the model you're gaining, basically. And it's a pretty useful thing. You can increase the range of important command cards by this, and the Rebels have a lot of very, very powerful command cards where you would probably like to extend the range if you need it. And it also allows you to cheat on the unit type, because you could use a command card which you couldn't use on a certain unit. Let's say, for example, the new Covering Fire card, which specifies core unit, you could use on a commander, for example, or a special forces unit, or any other unit. And considering how strong Covering Fire is, you could say that would already be a reason to take this little gimmick, that you can use this card well and still give an order to an important unit. An important unit which is a bit more important to order than a core. That's already a decent option in my opinion, and I feel like similarly to the Rebel Officer, this is already something that you can just take once in an army list and make yourself able to have more flexibility when using important orders without basically centering your commander's positioning around it, and be able to use orders which specify troops, for example, or core, on other types of units. The other options are a bit worse, or clearly worse in my opinion, because they're just a bit too costly for a trooper unit like this, where one of its chief positives is how cheap the unit is. The HQ uplink is an exhaust upgrade which allows you to issue an order to yourself. This can be used to copy or replicate the effect of strong command cards like the tour cards of Luke, Han, or Leia, because you still gain the effect of these orders. But even then, in the end, paying 9 points for the ability to issue an order to a core unit, and considering how you can very often, if you have enough core units, just be rather certain that if you just draw one from your pool, you'll have a very good chance of gaining a core unit, especially if you order other unit types constantly. I feel like this is just a bit too many points for a not all that certain or not all that important upside. Long range comlink has a similar issue. During the command phase, you may be issued orders as though you are in range of a nominated commander. I mean, you might very well be in range already, because this is not an outflanking unit or very fast unit. And again, 9 points for the ability to issue an order to a core unit, which you might just be able to draw out of your pool rather consistently, is a bit too high, and you'll probably just lack the situations where you want to use it even. Then the comms jammer, 15 points. Enemy units at range 1 can be issued orders unless they're issuing an order to themselves. This is a terrible upgrade in general because it just really overestimates how important orders are. You need to be in range 1, so it's pretty inconsistent then too. And this isn't a unit that's very fast or deploys in some advanced way or has any real good method of gaining to range 1, so it's just pretty bad on all fronts. The comms technician is, in my opinion, on this unit at least, mostly there for the comms relay, and that's an alright way to upgrade a unit here. You can give a unit number model and pay 4 extra points for the ability to help with your commands, and you may be able to use this to reduce the impact of some positioning mistakes you made, or to improve your flexibility with command cards if you split your army up more, or in the worst case it's just 4 points you spend on a utility upgrade which didn't do anything, and that's not the worst thing to waste. I feel like this is another decent option. You can play it once in an army list. After that, I personally feel like, unless really splitting up your army all the time and perhaps have only one commander, these 4 points might both add up and you might just increase the likelihood of them being wasted. So then, next in the personnel slot we have two bit similar options. First of all, we have the R5 Astromech Droid, which adds one R5 Astromech Droid mini for 8 points, and it has 2 special rules. The non-combatant special rule, which means that it may not attack, so it may not use any of the weapons of the unit, which is a shame, and it may not be removed unless the only other model in the remaining unit is a leader. So it isn't unlike some other models, like for example the comms technician. It lacks the ability to be removed to protect the Z6 or MPL 57 Iron Trooper. So that's a downside, clearly. Both of these rules are a downside, but the rule it brings is the Repair 1 Capacity 2 special rule, which allows you to place a wound token on this card to remove 1 wound, iron or vehicle damage token from a friendly vehicle at range 1 at a line of sight. Limit 2 tokens. First of all, you're probably not going to play this unless you're playing with vehicles, which is already a bit of a... I would say it already limits the types of lists and amount of lists that you might be playing this in. Additionally, I would say the vehicles that you would use it on right now are ATRTs with a weapon, because if you're playing ATRTs without any additional weapon, more hardpoint slot upgrade, if you want to be specific, then the argument for these ATRs is their cheapness and how aggressive you can use them, so this would probably not be all that worthwhile. So you have Snowspeeder, ATR with heavy weapons, and the incoming land speeder. And with the Snowspeeder especially, I feel like a big issue is how are you going to consistently be in range 1 with the Snowspeeder, and the Snowspeeder needs to stay alive, and some opponents might just be able to one round the Snowspeeder, or wait until this unit is activated and then just quickly kill the Snowspeeder. I feel like there are a lot of consistency issues with this upgrade or this model, and on the other hand, there is definitely a pretty good payoff, because for 8 points to remove 2 wounds or vehicle damage tokens from vehicles, that's pretty good. So I feel like the issue is more the rebel vehicles as right now, because we sort of lack the vehicles and also the vehicle-centric meta for this, because you also need your opponent to really shoot and perhaps even ionize your vehicle, which might not happen every time. I at least know many situations where I, as a rebel player, would just not shoot at my opponent's vehicles because I didn't have the firepower for that and just focus on infantry. And as well, focusing on the infantry has another thing. You need your opponent to take certain actions for this card to do anything. Your opponent might kill a vehicle before you are there, he might focus on a vehicle which isn't in your range, he might shoot this unit first and then kill a vehicle, and these are all situations where this R5 Astromech doesn't do much. I feel like this is a card with perhaps a decent payoff, if you can make it work, but with a lot of consistency issues and certain list building requirements. Personally, not a big fan. Although Astromechs are always pretty funny. Next, we have the 2-1B Medical Droid, which adds one 2-1B Medical Droid mini for 18 points, and it has the Treat 1 Capacity 2 special rule and the non-combatant rule. So it's pretty analogous to the R5 Astromech, the only difference being that you can remove wound tokens from friendly non-emplacement troopers at range 1, like the other one, just vehicles troopers, or you may restore one mini. Here you need to clear up something. There are a few ground rules for restoring mini. First of all, the unit you're healing other way has to have been wounded this round. Now technically you don't need it to have been the same model in case you're restoring medals. So for example, if the opponent managed to destroy a Z6 trooper or any heavy weapons model, however that happened, and next round he kills another model from the unit, you could still restore the Z6. The game isn't that specific about who you can restore, but you can always restore the model with only one wound. So in case you were to heal a Wookiee, for example, the unit would also take 2 wounds. Or the model would also gain 2 wounds. Some similar issues as with the R5 Astromech. What if you just burst down a unit, burst down the unit with a 2-1B, and then the whole thing was a bit wasted. And at least the consistency is high. You're most definitely running troopers, and especially rebels can be very trooper heavy. And you could be healing very high impact wounds like Han Solo, Jyn Erso, Luke Skywalker. So there's definitely some possibilities here for a lot of value, but I just feel like you could be spending the 18 points better. You could be taking, in case you're playing Han Solo or Jyn Erso, you might just put the 5-point upgrade, which allows Esteemed Leader, which allows you to passive wounds to troopers instead, and then just play another trooper. And you might have some similar effects to this card. Well, you might a bit less of an effect, but you would still have a normal trooper with all of those upsides, like shooting and taking the wound for a Z6 as well. I feel like there's another option you can take it. You might gain some mileage out of it, but I feel like it's just not all that great because it lacks the consistency. Right, now we're getting to the gear slot, where we have 5 utility upgrades. First of all, one quick disclaimer. There are a few of these upgrades are decent utility upgrades in my opinion, but in those cases, something which might occur a few times is okay, but this is a cheap unit, so if you see utility upgrades here as a bit of a force multiplier, then you should take them on units with a higher points cost, with a higher effect. For example, if you manage to reduce the amount of actions this unit needs to get somewhere, then you might just say, okay, but these are the actions of a unit that is so cheap that it's maybe not all that big of a waste or all that big of an issue. So in some cases here, the issue might be, okay, this is a good upgrade and it's cheap and you can take it, but perhaps you should not take utility upgrades which don't add combat efficiency on very cheap units, or should not take them all that often on very cheap units. First of all, we have targeting scopes. You gain Precise 1. When you spend name token, roll up to 1 additional die for 6 points. Yeah, another terrible core set upgrade. This is not the worst. Terrible is maybe perhaps a bit of an understatement, but it's pretty bad. because yeah, precise 146 points is, in my opinion, seriously overpriced. I don't know if this upgrade should be how many points. It should be less, but definitely a few, because you're still taking an action which isn't a move or a shoot to use this. You're already sort of not giving up, but you're limiting your options to use this. And as well, unlike with Stormtroopers, for example, the precise clashes with your nimble, because if you have another action, you might just want to take a dodge token and increase your defense, especially if you're activating it early. So this isn't that good. You're not rerolling the best dice, so it's a bad upgrade on a unit which doesn't fit it all that well. Grappling hooks, 3 points. You gain expert climber. While clambering, do not roll defense dice or suffer wounds. What this means is that you can take one action to climb all the time instead of taking two, unless you want to risk losing some of the members of your squad. So this is alright. The biggest issue is the one I've mentioned before, where you might take this on one unit, especially if you're playing with a lot of terrain which you want to climb on, or to get, for example, a objective or a very, very advantageous position up somewhere, because of sidelines or because there's an objective up there. But still, I feel like you could take it on a better unit in many cases. So, alright, I feel like you can take it once in an army list to sort of hedge your bets in case you get that table where there's a 2-story building with an objective token on it, most probably if it's in the middle of a battlefield, but something which you might not want to take too often. Environmental gear. You gain unhindered. You ignore the effects of difficult terrain. 3 points again. Very similar to the first one, and it's a good option if you're often playing with terrain which would be difficult for units to traverse, especially bigger zones of that. But again, is it really all that necessary? This is even worse than grappling hooks in that regard, because taking two actions can be even more of an issue, because you do not have the possibility to move to the terrain and then get up there. But here, is it really all that terrible to reduce the movement speed of that cheaper unit and perhaps waste some actions or reduce the efficiency of some actions that way? Nah, not really. So another alright utility option, and maybe a bit of a tech card in case you're playing with a lot of difficult terrain, but not really the unit where it's necessary, in my opinion. Merkin Systems, an exhaust upgrade for 8 points, which basically some of the text allows you to use it to take some time before up to 2 wounds which are suffered during an attack kick in. This allows you to use it, prevent 2 wounds which you're suffering during an attack specifically, and then you will just take them at the end of your next activation. This is an amazing upgrade on some units, but here the issue is, what are you saving? You're saving, in the best case, a heavy weapon and another trooper, or perhaps not in the best case, the leader, and really that's not all that worth it here, because you're not saving that high of a points value for some time and that strong of an attack. Of course, you might still have a situation where you're on an objective and the last turn your opponent shoots you down and you save it, but this isn't the right upgrade for this unit, or the right unit for this upgrade. They're just not strong enough for that. Recon Intel. You gain Scout 1. After you deploy, you may perform a Speed 1 move, 2 points. This is, in my opinion, a decent upgrade take on any unit, and it'll just give you a bit more deployment zone for that unit, but similarly, the issue is this unit is not the strongest one to take it on, and unless you're taking it basically in anything, you could just take it on a unit with less range or stronger attacks instead. A stronger unit in general. So yeah, another decent option, and you can definitely take it somewhere, and this unit as well, but I feel like the issue with a lot of the useful cards and sort of situational cards in this category is that one of the biggest factors to this unit's success is how cheap it is, but that also means that using points to increase its efficiency, unless they're directly giving you attack or defense, isn't really worth it often, because this unit doesn't gain the same effect from utility that others do. Lastly, we get to the grenade slot, where we have 3 options for 5 points each. We have the concussion grenades, which give you a black die at range 1 and blast, and any model in this unit can use it. In this case, I feel like it's not really all that worth it, because you're not upgrading your dice, and you're not gaining a convert. You're just gaining blast at range 1, which is a bit, which in my opinion isn't necessarily worth it in comparison to all the times where this unit gets shot down or suppressed or just doesn't make it into range 1 for any reason. And even then, maybe the opponent doesn't have cover, maybe you can just flank him because you're that close and ignore his cover, especially if he's behind a barricade or something like that. Not all that great in my opinion, and the rebel troopers just aren't usually the unit to storm the enemy with concussion grenades. Next, we have impact grenades, which also give you a black die at range 1 and impact 1. This is more interesting in my opinion, mostly because the rebels suffer from a lack of good and consistent anti-vehicle options, or at least those you have to take, you'll probably take specifically for that purpose. So this is a decent way to hedge your bets against vehicles, and especially against vehicles like an AT-AT with flamethrower, which might otherwise, well, wreck this unit completely, or a snowspeeder, which both might well get close enough for the grenades to be useful, or an AT-AT without a hard point. This is a more interesting option in my opinion if your list really lacks that anti-vehicle punch, and you can just take this on a unit with heavy weapon personnel. Of course, each of these grenades, because it can be used by the whole unit, are usable on the are more useful if you have a personnel upgrade. But an alright tech option for some lists in my opinion, and I've taken it. Then we have the newest one, fragmentation grenades. A red die at range 1, and while this weapon is in your attack pool, you gain a crit convert on attack. The strongest attack die in the game. So that's already a definite factor, and I feel like one of the most interesting things here is this is an upgrade which you could use both as a slightly worse impact grenade, because you're getting a crit convert on the Z6 as well, and on these. So on these you have dice with 2 sides which deal damage to vehicles, and the Z6 has the same amount of dice, because no impact but crit convert. You're losing a little bit from the black dice, but you're also better against cover. So a little worse impact rates, but also the option to just really wreak havoc on any other unit if you get close to it, because giving this unit this amazing attack dice and giving the Z6 a crit convert makes this unit incredibly devastating. It's definitely a serious option, and I feel like it's the one question, just do you want to play grenade on this unit in general, more so, and if then this one might just do the trick. In conclusion, are the rebel troopers a good unit? Yes, most definitely. The rebel troopers are one of the strongest units in the whole rebel army for their points cost, in my opinion. Especially if you factor the Z6 just in as very often just staple to this unit, and they're just incredibly effective for their points cost. They're very cheap, even with the Z6. They're at 60 points still, and that's just they just give you a really good all-around package for that price. Now to go a bit deeper, then they're just awesome. Alright, hope this was informative to you. Any feedback, just put it in the comments, and I hope I'll get back to you soon with another one of these.